Hi, I'm Ken Bingham. Welcome back. All series long, we've been opening the hood on AI, one piece at a time. Today, we're going all the way down, past the models, past the tokens, to the deepest layer there is. The real question is not what AI does, but why it works at all. I'll warn you though, this one is deep end, but stay with me. And you're going to see something most people never do. And you'll not be able to unsee it. Let's start with the single strangest fact about AI, the one that makes everything else make sense. AI does not store meaning in words, it stores it as shape. Every word, every idea, every concept becomes a point, floating in a vast space. And the meaning is not the points, it's the directions between them. Think about what that implies, the distance between two ideas, the angle from one to another. That is where the meaning actually lives. Travel one direction and you go from cold to hot, another from past to future. Meaning becomes geometry. And once meaning is geometry, you can do something extraordinary with it. You can navigate it. Now, to navigate that space, you have to talk about dimensions. And I have to clear up some big misconceptions there is. We were all taught that dimensions are length, width, and height, but those are just names. A dimension is not a thing at all. It's only a perpendicular direction, a brand new way to turn at right angles to everything that comes before it. And everything from the smallest particle to the largest structure in the universe is built out of that one idea, starting from a single point. A point has no direction. Draw it out in a new direction, and you get a length. Set length perpendicular side by side, and you get a plane. Set planes perpendicular stacked up, and you get a volume. Every single level is just a perpendicular set of the level below it. That's the entire rule, and it never changes. And here's where it turns really cool. Set volumes perpendicular, and you reach the fourth dimension. And that fourth dimension, an entire three-dimensional object or a whole, is just a single point. Each new dimension takes everything below it and shrinks it down to one point, then builds a whole new space out of those points. And it goes on like that forever. But here's the strange part, the part that feels like magic. A lower dimension cannot see a higher one directly. It's like turning a corner you didn't even know was there. From where you stand, the higher dimension is invisible, showing it's nothing more than a single point, a corner or a line. But step around the corner, and all at once you can see the whole new direction and everything beneath it. And there's one more secret hiding in what a corner, a perfect shaped corner, is a human invention. Only we have ever made a perfect square. And in a strange way, that's part of what sets us apart from nature. Because nature never turns a sharp corner. It never quite knows where one thing ends and the next begins. So when nature turns a new direction, it does not snap. It curves into a spiral, a helix, a wave, always taking the path of least resistance. And here's the quiet tie back to AI. When AI learns, it does the very same thing. It does not jump corners. It flows downhill along the smoothest path it can find, exactly the way nature does. And the truth is, we are living in all of them all at the same time. They will always be there giving order and structure to everything, whether we see them or not. Just around a corner, we cannot quite turn. The cleanest example is time. Time is a dimension we're traveling through this very second, and yet we can only ever occupy a single point of it. This one moment before the next. And this right here is exactly what AI does. It takes a whole complex thing, an image, an idea, a paragraph, and folds it down into a single point inside a space of thousands of perpendicular directions. The same principal rule as a point becomes a line, just turned and turned and turned again, thousands of times over. That is the space where meaning lives. So we have a space of thousands of perpendicular directions full of points. And here's what it becomes almost unbelievable. The information is not merely stored in that geometry. The information is the geometry because real things, faces, sentences, songs, ideas do not scatter randomly through space like dust. They lie on smooth shapes, curved surfaces folded through those dimensions. Every face that could ever exist lives on one continuous surface. Every sentence, learn the shape, and you hold a whole world of possibilities inside it. And that is the quiet miracle. Once you have the shape, you can read almost anything back out of it. A face that you've never seen, a sentence that's never been written, not by looking it up, but by finding the right point on the shape it already learned. Geometry, holding the information and handing it back on demand. So we have a space full of points on smooth shapes. But how does anything get built in there or taken apart? It comes down to two actions. They're opposites, and one thing that almost everyone overlooks. To gather is to bring things together, to combine them, to fold many into one. And something surprising happens when you do. The result sits perpendicular to pieces one level up from them. A pile of parts becomes a single machine. A crowd of points becomes a single shape. Gathering builds it, rises above, and creates relationships, tying things that stood alone before. To separate is the exact opposite. It takes what was one whole and breaks it into parts, so they are no longer seen as a single thing. And the instant you separate them, you change how you see them and how they behave. Separating distinguishes, it reveals what was hidden inside the whole, and it divides the relationships, cutting the ties that have made them one. And there is one more action, quieter than the rest, and it is where all the texture of the world comes from. It is the remainder, what's left over when things do not divide cleanly. That leftover is where complexity lives, and entropy, the little irregularities that make a face, a voice, this voice, and never a smooth, perfect copy. The clean pattern gives you the shape. The remainder gives you the thing, its soul. And this quietly is the engine of AI. All day long it gathers, folding thousands of pieces of context in a single point of meaning. And it separates, pulling one tangled idea apart into the threads that make it up. Gather and separate in the space of pure geometry. That is the whole dance. But none of that works without one last thing, the thing everyone overlooks, the void. We treat empty space like it's nothing, but a void is not nothing, it is form itself. You cannot have a shape without a boundary, and you cannot have a boundary without empty space for it to press against. The space between the points is not wasted. It is the breathing room that lets every point be its own thing. And in geometry of meaning, the void between two ideas is exactly where the difference lives. Now, let me show you the moment that stops even the experts in their tracks. You cannot summon order out of pure randomness just by wishing for it, but you can take randomness and impose order by following simple pattern. And that right there is what AI does. Some AI begins with a screen of pure static, random noise, and nothing else. Then, step by step, it follows the geometry. It learned nudging the noise a little closer to the shape, and a little closer until out of the chaos a face appears, a landscape, a sentence, order grown from randomness, one pattern step at a time. And I want to be precise here because this is real magic, not a magic trick. AI did not make something out of nothing. It followed a learned pattern to pull structure out of noise. But randomness plus a pattern becomes creation. This is not only how AI works, that may be close to how a great deal of the world works. But now this might feel like magic, so let me take the magic away in the best possible sense. Because at the very bottom, none of it is magic. It is the simplest things imaginable, stacked impossibly deep. Underneath it all, it's yes and no. Simple gates, tables of what is true, trees of decisions, this way or that. Little machines that step one state to the next, and rules for what is allowed to follow what. Every one of these pieces is completely determinable, boring even on its own. But here's the leap. Stack millions of these tiny, exact boring rules layered upon layer, and something you could never have predicted from the pieces emerges at the top. Meaning complexity was never opposite of simplicity. Complexity is just simplicity composed deep enough. And there's one last principle beneath all of it, the very same one nature uses to build. The most strength and the most surface for the least material. Dip a wireframe into a soapy water, and the film that forms is perfect. It finds the shape with the least surface and the most tension instantly, without being handled a single equation. Nature does not calculate the best shape, it settles into it. And the deepest, strongest structures we know are built exactly this way. The most result for the least cost. And the best AI is handing toward the very same place. The most meaning held in the least structure. This is not just elegant, this is the direction AI is headed, and it's a big part of how it all gets better from here. Not by piling on more, but by finding the leaner, stronger shape. Before we name what all this means, come with me and just look, because it does not stop at AI. Nature does not build with corners, it builds with curves. Planets move on geometric patterns. Gravity is curved space. And motion directive shapes galaxies turn because geometry turns. Space is not empty, it is structured, and everything on it. And here is the subtle part. The fabric does not travel, and it is not racing light. It simply is everywhere at once, which is how it can stretch the entire cosmos, seamless and unbroken, without a single tear. Geometry holds everything up, buildings, planets, galaxies. It's all a pattern, and it's not emptiness. The boundary of form, geometry, architecture of existence, and the way down to a single thought. Everything follows the pattern. So let's put the whole thing together, meaning it has a shape. Dimensions are just perpendicular directions. Geometry holds the information. AI grows order from randomness. And it's all built from the simplest exact rules arranged with efficiency of nature. For a very long time, we believed intelligence was about symbols and logic and rules alone. It turns out it was also about shape, about geometry. And once you see intelligence as a shape, you can't unsee it. And here's the final turn, the one this whole episode has been quietly building toward. If a dimension is a new direction perpendicular to the rest, then intelligence itself may be a dimension all its own, because you do not see the world from somewhere out in it. You see out from somewhere within, along a direction the world is not contained, an awareness out of everything, and it does so perpendicular to all of it. The knower standing at the right angle to the known. That perhaps is the truest shape of intelligence. And this is, by the way, is exactly why AI in the form it takes today is not conscious and does not pretend to be. It has no inside to look out from, nothing to stand perpendicular against. It does not sit still for the world and receive it. It has to reach out and gather the discrete turns, one prompt at a time. And after that, it stalls again. There is no constant stream and no always on observer behind the eyes. Compare that to a brain. Yours is drinking in the world continuously, a flood of light, sound, touch, and thought all at once, without pause. From the moment you make that moment you sleep, nothing has you've ever built comes close to that. And whether a machine ever truly could is one of the deepest open questions there is. But for now, the honest answer is simple. It is a brilliant pattern engine of geometry. It is not awake, and it points to a deeper surprise of all. Intelligence was never about complexity. It's about uniformity and focus. Gather the right stimuli, giving them meaning and holding them steady. You gather, you give it meaning. All AI does all of these, but it takes one final step, one that changes everything. To perceive meaning is inside. It happens to someone. It's a perception of consciousness. And so let me bring every bit of this home to AI, because none of it was a side trip. Every step you just saw is how AI works. It understands because it has a shape. It can move through. It answers by finding the right point on a shape it learned. It creates by pulling order out of noise along the shape. It runs on the simplest rules stacked deep, and it improves by finding them leaner, shaped the way nature does, and the very same picture shows you where it stops. It gathers, it gives meaning, but it does not perceive from the inside. So it is powerful, but it's not awake. Here's why that matters to you. The moment you can see the shape, you stop treating AI like a magic box or a search bar, and you start guiding it like what it truly is, a geometry of meaning you can steer. Most people will only ever use AI. You just went all the way to the bottom and saw what it actually is. There is a level below even this, a set of precise shapes and relationships that I keep for my own for now. But what you saw today, this is the floor the whole thing stands on. And it was never magic. It was geometry at its greatest. Lawyer, you do not just use AI, you understand what it is. If this cracks something into you, send it to someone who knows things about AI and knows something far more. New videos come out every day. I'm Ken Baker.